So, Everlost is both the title of the book and it's the name of the realm that the actual book sets in. So, Everlost itself, it's basically a liminal world, which is a place between life and whatever comes after death. Um, Only the children who become lost on their way to the light end up there as afterlights. Adults don't appear to get lost in the same way. So, some of the most important rules of this realm are: one, Everlost overlaps the living world. The geography is almost identical to Earth, but afterlights can't normally interact with living people or ordinary objects. They exist in the same places, but on a different plane. Two, dead things can't cross over. So, objects and places that were especially loved or significant can appear in Everlost after they're destroyed in the living world. So, some examples include the former World Trade Center. This is where a character that we'll mention later builds her community. Old ships, trains, there's treasure toys, homemade birthday cakes, and other possessions with sentimentality attached to them. And the idea is that love leaves a kind of spiritual imprint. So, number three, if you sink, or you'll sink if you stand still. So, this rule is for everyone. And if an afterlight remains motionless on ordinary living ground for too long, gravity slowly pulls them downward through the earth. Eventually, they'll sink towards the planet's center. Only places that have crossed fully and ever lost, called dead spots, are stable enough to stand in indefinitely. Number four, memories fade. As time passes, afterlights slowly forget faces, names, birthdays, details of their lives. Their strongest memories literally reshape time, or their strongest memories literally reshape them. So Nick, for example, he permanently retains the chocolate stain on his face because it's one of the last vivid things he remembers before dying. Number five, appearance follows memory. Rather than aging, afterlives gradually become what they believe themselves to be. Identity isn't fixed, it is psychologically constructed. Number six, certain children develop special abilities. Most afterlives cannot affect the living world. A rare few will become haunters or skinjackers, which are those who can temporarily possess living people. Allie becomes one of the most gifted skinjackers in Everlost. And Allie is one of the protagonists of the books. We'll get to it later. In number seven, every afterlight has a coin. Every child arrives with a coin. Mary secretly collects these coins because she believes leaving Everlost is dangerous. Later, it's revealed the coins are connected to eventually moving on to the true afterlife, making Mary's actions one of the novel's greatest betrayals. And McGill, as the first anomaly, at first every child in Everlost believes that McGill is simply a monster pirate soul eater, something fundamentally other. Eventually, we discovered he's actually Mikey McGill, a child whose overwhelming determination allowed him to claw his way back from sinking into the Earth's center instead of disappearing. He returned profoundly transformed, his body reflecting years of isolation, rage, and survival. It's pretty important that Everlost has these rules because McGill breaks them. He proves the world that laws are not absolute. Every major revelation in the trilogy follows the same pattern. Initially, everyone believes this is simply how Everlost works. Then someone appears who says no. McGill is the first proof. Later, Allie will become the first great skinjacker, right? Nick, the other protagonist, he discovers truths about passing into the light, and other characters reshape Everlost in ways previously thought impossible. And so, the narrative repeatedly suggests that belief and will can alter metaphysical reality. Why McGill matters to Allie. Most readers assume McGill is simply Allie's antagonist. I think he's actually her mirror. Allie's defining trait is refusal. She refuses Mary's rules, Everlost assumptions, fear, passive acceptance. McGill is exactly the same, except he's had 100 years more suffering. They're both characters who instinctively reject inevitability. The difference is what they become. Two responses to trauma. McGill answers suffering with domination. Allie answers suffering with curiosity. Both reject helplessness. Only one preserves compassion. That makes McGill a vision of who Allie could become. Now, McGill and Nick. Nick's significance is almost opposite. Nick changes systems. McGill changes himself. Nick influences people. McGill bends reality. Together, they demonstrate two forms of agency, one social, one metaphysical. The monster is psychological, so McGill's appearance isn't just random. Everlost slowly reveals that children who become shaped by memory and identity, your self-image, that alone will have an ontological force. And Mikey believes himself to be monstrous, Mikey being McGill's true first name. And so eventually, he becomes monstrous. This anticipates one of the trilogy's deepest ideas, that identity is creative, ultimately. Who you believe yourself to be changes what you become. Connections to later the anomaly figures in this book might include like McGill surviving the Earth's core, Allie mastering skinjacking, Nick becoming the chocolate ogre, Mary maintaining extraordinary authority through belief. Later characters whose identities become increasingly mythic. Each of them stops functioning as merely an individual. They become an idea. Archetypal evolution, effectively. One thing I love about the trilogy is that characters gradually stop behaving like ordinary people. Instead, they become archetypes. McGill transforms into the beast. Mary becomes the mother. Nick becomes the savior. Allie becomes the explorer or boundary walker. These aren't official titles, they're psychological roles that each of them will grow into. So McGill is like the shadow through like a Jungian lens to look at it. He's a manifestation of the shadow. Everything Everlost refuses to acknowledge becomes him. Fear, abandonment, loneliness, resentment. Instead of integrating those emotions, he embodies them. Allie eventually does something remarkable. She sees Mikey beneath beneath that monster. That's psychologically significant. Healing begins not by defeating the shadow, but by recognizing the person trapped inside it. Even later on in the book, we are given the idea of the fortune cookie Frosty. So McGill believes collecting 1,000 souls will restore him to life because the prosthetic fortune cookie said that. It drives most of his behavior, and its deeper function is symbolic in that it gives him a story powerful enough to organize his existence. Whether or not the literal interpretation is correct matters less than how completely he lets it define him. But he's different from later anomalies. Because the later anomalies usually expand possibility. McGill embodies consequence. He's the cost of refusing to let go without wisdom. He's essentially the trilogy asking, what happens when pure will survives after compassion dies? And my favorite parallel is that this connection, I don't often see discussed even, is that McGill and the protagonists are all trying to answer the same exact question. Can identity survive death? McGill says through force, certainly. Mary says through memory, certainly. Nick says through love, certainly. Allie says through growth, certainly. Each one represents a different philosophical answer to the same metaphysical problem. And here lies the trilogy's hidden pattern. Once you notice it, the trilogy stops being about ghosts and starts being about exceptions. Every major turning point occurs because one person refuses to accept a supposedly fixed law. McGill refuses to remain buried. Allie refuses the limits of haunting. Nick refuses that Everlost is anyone's final destination. And Mary refuses to let children move on. So McGill isn't simply the first villain. He's the first proof that identity, conviction, and will are forces capable of rewriting reality itself. Later anomaly figures don't replace him. Instead, they elaborate on the same central idea from different moral directions. And that is why he remains one of the most significant characters. Now I want to go into more of their differences. Which is how I believe that to the question of how I can become stronger, Nick would instead ask, how can I improve Everlost for everyone? And this creates the novel's central philosophical opposition.